2, 3. Yeah, we shall.
Okay.
Oh, bebop.
Really?
Bebop.
Yeah.
All right, here. All right, guys. So here we are unmasked. We were masked in our rehearsal, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
My goodness. So, how did we get together? You guys remember?
Ah, yes, that was the Persepolis project, the dance piece with Persepolis group that has a special name. That was with choreographer who put that together, and we performed it at the 2018. Was that the 2018 World Dance Summit, or it has a fancier name than that? I don't remember the name.
That's what I think it's called.
Yes.
Yeah, at the Opera House.
Yes, that was really
Yeah,
fun.
that was fun.
It was super fun. Yeah, yeah. And you guys had already been playing together for a long time.
Yeah. Different projects,
Yeah,
different artistic projects, gigs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What kind of backgrounds do you guys
Shady.
have?
Well, let's see. I am a native of Montana, and wound up in the Bay Area in 1987. I studied Indian music with Alec Barkan at the Alec Bar College. Studied tabla also there with Swapan Chowdhury, and also was studying classical cello. Played in a group called Davka, which recorded a number of albums and toured and so on. And that it was actually, I think it was like in 1989 that Katie and I did one of our first bigger projects, which was a composition that we'd performed a composition I wrote for Lions Ballet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we've been
It's
playing.
after 89, though.
Okay, 91.
Mid 90s somewhere.
Maybe I'm totally wrong. Oh, 89. No, that's totally wrong. I'm like 10
Yeah.
years off. Amazing.
It was a long time ago.
Yes.
It was a long time ago.
1989. No. It was definitely 1989.
We
How
did
about
a couple of
1990?
quartet gigs.
Yes, 1999, I think. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, and actually, I went to a wedding before I even played harp, and Davka was playing. Yeah, in my early 20s, and I was like, oh, I wish that I could play music like that. I just come from Cyprus, and you were playing all this kind of Near Eastern style and Eastern European style, and I was like, oh, if only, because I only played piano at that point, and I only played classical piano at that, and I was like, oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine playing that kind of music?
And look at you now.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah,
Alternating sevens and tens. Or what was it say? Yeah, sevens and tens, right?
all of that, which we played some of in the recording, of course. Yeah. Katie,
Yes.
what about your background?
What is my background? I grew up in LA. I trained as a professional symphony player. I worked as a professional symphony player. I hated being a professional symphony player. I discovered jazz and quit everything cold turkey to study jazz. Then I traveled with Turtle Island String Quartet for a while and left that and discovered that if you take your classical training and your jazz training and you put them together, it's a no-brainer to also become a composer.
Yeah, I love it. So, in terms of composing as a group, what would you say our ethos is? What is our mission? I know it's quite a grand word. I love our ethos because, if you don't mind my jumping in, I feel like our ethos is to compose and arrange together for the love of it. We never had a focus on the idea of we need to get these gigs and, we need to have this fancy website and very externally focused things. It was like, actually, this is the venue where we get to do exactly what we want, how we want it. Am I right?
You are so right.
And that's unique because I feel like, as professional musicians, we oftentimes end up having to be quite externally focused, and for good reason, because, we need to make a living. We need to, carry on in the Bay Area.
Yes.
But I feel like the way we do things is pretty unique.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have a group to be able to rehearse with. I enjoy the rehearsal process as much as anything. I love to perform, and I miss it. I miss performing in front of audiences. I think our last performance was like right on the verge of the shutdown.
Yes.
In March of
March 8th. I remember.
March 8th. Look at that.
Yeah, and shutdown was the 9th.
So we snuck one in there. Anyway, but having a group of musicians who are also composers to work out pieces with, particularly because we're all improvisers also, so we don't have to write out all of our parts. Each player gets to make up some of their own material on the based on the composition. And I find that really fun too. I enjoy that part of the process. It's much more interesting to me to be able to make up something based off of a chart that's put in front of me than just to play the notes.
Yeah, yeah. I love how we reclaim rehearsing as something absolutely valid in and of itself, and not just some imposition that we have to do as quick as possible before the gig. You know, the priority really is the rehearsal, and having that be very satisfying. Katie, could you describe a little bit about our process? Definitely.
Well, I did want to add one thing to the last bit.
Yep.
When I was studying with Alaudin Matthew, he said something that really stuck with me, that when you're living a creative life, you have to put your stuff out in the world, but that for your own sanity and creative integrity, that you need to have something that's yours, that you don't share with anybody else. And I feel like what we're doing is some of that, and we share some of the stuff, but a lot of what we're doing when we're just working together, that's not going anywhere outside, and I find it really satisfying.
Yeah, yeah. Could you describe a little bit what a rehearsal looks like?
Everybody shows up. Sometimes we have tea, sometimes we have booze. Everybody kind of, says, this is what's happened since the last time we were together. And then we get down to things, and we kind of take turns suggesting what we want to work on next. And sometimes it'll just be run through, and sometimes we'll be collaboratively composing on a partially completed idea that somebody brings. And that's probably the most fun. The stuff that's just maybe 30-40% there, and everybody else having input is what really turns it into the music that it'll be.
Yeah, yeah. Could you say something about what it's like to compose for harp? Because I think it's a tricky thing for people who don't play the harp. There's some consideration.
So I've sat next to a lot of, most of my composing is for people, not for instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And I learn from the person that I'm going to be writing for. And so sitting next to a lot of harp players on gigs and projects and things, and watching how they do stuff, and then imagining my hands where their hands are, and reading a lot of stuff on the internet about how to write for harp. And then the other part of that is not to be so invested in my genius that when I take it to a harp player and say, how does this look? And they say, no, 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 no. And to take that seriously. And since I'm usually writing for friends, it's usually kind of fun. But as Moses says, we work a lot from lead sheets. And so that relieves me of the burden of actually knowing what I'm doing.
I love it. Yeah, Moses.
Yeah, I was going to say some of the things that I naturally like to do for cello are actually translate fairly interestingly on the harp. For instance, string crossing, things with pedal tones. That's been interesting to see how you can pull that off. And
Wow.
that, yeah. I mean, the cool thing about working with an improviser composer is that I can just actually give you the chord progression, or even just a melody line. You can make up a part based on it, and it's almost always better than what I could think of, and it saves me half the work, or I mean, like less than half. So you're doing the work of creating your own part a lot of the time, and I like that because it then the members are more invested in the music. You know, like you've got your part, you figured it out. Just the other day, you worked out a part for one of my tunes, and it was really cool. It was really fun to come to rehearsal and hear what you had created. You know, because I had never heard it before. So that's fun.
That was
One thing about the harp about the lever harp, your instrument is interesting, is one has to consider key changes and quick changes of notes, like well, accidentals. How you're going to work that out, and you have your interesting tricks of how to use different octaves to get the different notes, and you can switch octaves and have it set up on your harp. So that's an interesting thing to see and to learn from.
Yeah, and sometimes, you guys are holding, like when we do the transition in the recording from the scales into when I open my eyes, I have to change a lot of levers. So you guys do all this interesting stuff, and I have all the time in the world to just change the levers. And when I'm ready, I can come in. And that's so great, rather than, the scramble panic.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a whole bunch of things we can do.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So coming up with our particular sound has been interesting because we are also a quartet, but our beloved violinist is away in Chicago. And so we are harp, cello, and viola, which is quite in the lower range. And we don't have a super high sustaining sounding instrument like the violin. So really getting into the possibilities of this pretty unique configuration has been really, really fun and challenging in some ways. Katie, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so as a violist, violists tend to like to fill out the middle, to be the guts that people don't really see. I really relish that, but I also, more than a lot of viola players, I like to be in the front. I like to drive.
Yeah.
I always like to drive. Uh, and so without the violin hanging out in my lower overtones, it gives me a chance to be a little more powerful, and then with the cello, a lot of times cello and viola just kind of and you can't really tell one or the other a lot of the time. The sounds just kind of attach and stick. And so with the trio format, it lets us be a little more separate because I can go a little higher. And then also Moses plays high, and I can do more bass lines, which is really fun for me because there's no violin sitting on top of the high cello sound either. And then when Sarah's here, then we have a little bit more of a hierarchy. We have a little more individual territories and specific roles. So one of the things working out how to be a trio is to not have those specific roles and to figure out what other tonal qualities we have to play with without any role models.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that the trio format is a more virtuosic kind of format because one has to really carry a part that nobody else is carrying often. Quartet is very different. It's a really different kind of feeling to it. Is a group. Three is a very powerful group. I played in a trio for many years with Davka, and then became a quartet. It was very different. But anyway, I enjoy both the formats for our group, but it's been interesting exploring the tonality in the tones and the textures that we can create as a trio since Sarah Jo has been in Chicago.
Yeah, and I've found, I've had to go up a lot more than I usually do, which is really, really good because, I get kind of lazy and addicted to the mid-range and low because it's so beautiful on the harp. and yet, then I'm right down in the same range as you guys. And so it's like, well, go higher, just go there. And so for me, that's been,
Find your own space.
yeah, exactly. Really a good practice for me to do that, and to also continuously think about other sounds, like using harmonics. And Katie, you were saying at our last rehearsal you really like the pret de la table sound. I'm like, I really could use more of that. And yeah, really using the full extent of the colors for contrast.
Yeah. The first several rehearsals we had as a trio, I found really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because things
Such a
just,
good thing going with our quartet.
yeah, and there was a
Zeppelin got
expectation of a
together, and we
particular
were like,
sound, and
what? Yeah.
we tried to do some of the same repertoire as a trio and just switch the parts around, and that definitely did not work. To just try to have one person take over the melody, that didn't work. So yeah, it's a process.
Yeah.
Figuring out how to make this combination happen.
Yeah. I love it. So, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing?
For me, sitting in the living room in Vallejo is pretty much where I am.
Yeah. And
I
on
walk down the street to the park twice a week for Tai Chi.
I could find you there.
at the dog park and at the Tai Chi park.
That's it, yeah.
And online, you have a Composing Together.
Composingtogether.org. And if anybody's getting married, KatrinaWreede.com.
Yay! So lots of very cool information on both of those sites. And Moses, how can people find you?
Well, I have a very old and outdated website, mosessedler.net, which is...
Oh my goodness, I don't think I've even ever been there.
I have not updated that site in years, so people don't get your hopes up. But it just has recordings of compositions of mine, and also I have a SoundCloud page and all this stuff. Yeah, but yeah, that's mainly it. You do various videos. Actually, there's videos of on YouTube of me actually particularly performing with dancers. The Persepolis Project with Miriam Peretz, who's a fabulous dancer, and a few other groups. There's Davka, there's things out there. Yeah.
Is she the one we did that fake Bach thing with?
No.
That duo recording thing that was supposed to sound like fake Bach?
No. That was
Okay.
Miriam, yeah. So, and what about you, Diana? How can people find out about you?
Yeah.
My website, dianarowan.com.
That's it. And what about that book of yours?
Yeah, The Bright Way.
You know what? Yesterday was the 1-year release of my book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I forgot to celebrate it, but you know what happened, right? I mean, just the week after it released, lockdown happened. So I'm basically going to be doing a second launch for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's chugged along fine, but I feel like I didn't put the energy behind it I didn't want to, honestly. It just didn't feel like the right time. It felt like so much was going on for people that they had to really, work through the shock and trauma, and then get back into freeing the creative within, which ultimately, I find is extremely healing. So yeah, so that's going to be a focus for me. Yeah. Well, I'm also going to ask you guys to introduce your pieces, if you don't mind. So, yeah, Moses, maybe you want to start saying what Cedar Hawk is about?
Oh yeah. So Cedar Hawk is one of my nephews, and I wrote this for him when he was 3.5. This was, let's see, I think the date is 2005. I was up visiting my family in Montana, in the northwest corner of Montana. And yeah, Cedar Hawk, he is my youngest brother's first son. And I just was in a creative mood. and this music came to me. It's kind of I mean, it's very influenced by Bulgarian music, as we've talked about. There's got to be some Bulgarian genes in me because it just keeps coming out like Bulgarian. I don't know. It's anyway, and yeah, that's what that piece is about. A little rhythm cycles, which is kind of my thing, and a bit of a Balkan influenced melodic and drony melody thing.
Yeah, I mean, we change time signature a lot in this piece. I'm looking at it right now. 7, 9, 4.
For a while.
Such good stuff.
Yes.
So I did, 23andMe, and it turns out I'm 0.9% Balkan. So that was part of our discussion about this. Yeah. Love it. Writing strong. Yay. So Katie, what about, let's start with migration. No, let's start with November, because that's when.
Yeah, we did November next on the order, right? So by end of November is the deadline that I set for myself to get the piece done. That's
works.
And I used to be very into little tiny bits, puzzle pieces, making stuff, fit that way. Probably from doing an awful lot of 20th century new music, bebop, kind of music. And then jazz language, kind of combining those. So this was a little bit of a throwback for that. There's a lot of hocketing between parts and attempts to do some really complicated counterpoint.
Yeah. And actually, this is one of our pieces that is completely composed. We are playing parts.
Yes.
That Katie created. Whereas with Cedar Hawk, I made my part, and I think Katie, you're mostly making up your part.
Yeah. It's a lead sheet.
Yeah, it's a lead sheet. Yeah. And how about migration?
Migration is what happens when you hang out with people who have a vibe like our group has. So I am learning. I'm learning to write pretty melodies. I've never written pretty melodies before.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's definitely making my palette a lot more three-dimensional.
It's a beautiful melody.
Thank you.
It's such an earworm. I get it stuck, in my head.
Yeah, and it works at different tempos.
Yeah, it does. I always want to make it nice and slow. Like faster.
It is like faster.
Yeah.
So the discrepancy is it 3 beats at kind of a moderate tempo, which makes the piece sound slow, or is it a faster tempo with a big 1 feel, so the 1 is even slower? And so that's usually my preference, but we've done it a bunch of different tempos, and it just sounds really nice every time.
Yeah. I would say you like it in 3/8. I like it in 3/2.
Yeah, so like
we gotta meet somewhere.
One really big beat.
Yeah, exactly.
What about your piece?
Little pieces inside.
Yeah, so we put together the scales, and When I Open My Eyes, and that was actually Katie's suggestion to meld the two pieces, because the scales is like this kind of swashbuckling piece that I wrote for my dad, who's a Libra. The scales, just like Moses, is a Libra. And so I wanted a really Irish sound to it, and it's in 4, which is, I'm addicted to writing in 3. I really needed a 4. And the key change is outrageous. So that's where you guys fill out that space. And then we go into When I Open My Eyes, which is also an Irish influenced piece. It's influenced by a poet called Nuala Ní Donal. And she wrote a beautiful poem in Irish, but I used the English translation. And basically what happened was I read the poem over and over again, and a rhythm started coming to me, and then a melody started coming to me. So that's how that piece came along. And that piece talks about the start of a new relationship and also compares it to Newgrange on the winter solstice when the sun rises and the ray of sunshine starts shooting down this passageway and making this chamber in the back of the mound glow golden for a number of minutes. So yeah, I wanted that timeless sound and that mysterious. That's why you guys start with this kind of misty, who knows, this winter solstice in Ireland. Yeah, probably when the sun comes up, nobody will see it. Yeah, so that's that piece. So two pieces together.
And it also functions to give you a chance to play with the levers.
Exactly. I usually perform these pieces separately, and actually oftentimes we like to have the scales and then go into kind of an epic rock out piece, but Moses, you mixed it for this time, which is okay. And then my other piece also was inspired by a poem, this time by Saint Catherine of Siena, who was a medieval mystic. And it's called Live Without Thought of Dying. And again, these were words that I read over and over again, and a melody started coming to me. And this time, the melody was much more influenced by kind of a hybrid of Hindustani music and also Balkan. So it goes in and out of different modes quite a bit, but it has a constant tonic the entire time. So that's what I was looking for in that piece.
Yeah, I think my favorite part is the ending.
Ah,
People can hear it on our recording.
yeah, I play C sharp in the middle and C natural at the end, because the words are live without thought of dying, for dying is not a truth. And while I believe that's absolutely true, there is a bittersweet quality to that. It's not a jolly concept necessarily. And so I wanted to have that ending that was still, edgy.
Some tension there.
Yep.
Yep.
Not ready to go yet. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you guys for.
Great to be on with you.
Yeah. And great to play together.
Yes.
I'm glad we've been able to keep it going.
Yeah. It's absolutely a highlight in my life. I'm really grateful for you guys.
Yeah, likewise. All right. Thanks, Diana.
All right.
See you Monday.
See you Monday.
Bye.
Bye.